I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind. Thunder.
You're listening to the Create What You Speak podcast. My intention is to change the lives of 1 million women, one podcast at a time. Now let's get started.
Thunder, feel the thunder.
My name is Sloan Fremont, and today I'm going to talk to you about signs.
Way on the wind, I burst through the trees. I walk around, a dragonfly, fly dragonfly.
All right, welcome to another week of the Create What You Speak podcast, where we take a one-word topic and I talk through how you can incorporate that into your life to create the life that you want. I'm really excited about this week's show because I love this topic of signs, and I have so much to talk to you about with this. But before we get into that, I wanted to tell you a few things. So first off, have you guys seen this show called Big Little Lies on HBO? I know I'm a little behind on this one because it's already past season 1 and going into season 2, but it's based on a book by Lillian Moriarty. And all I can say about this show is, oh my God, like, I'm pretty sure I read this book. And so if you haven't read it, I do recommend the book too, because it was really good. But the show, it feels like, takes it to another level. And it, like I said, I'm on season 1, but I feel like this show did a really good job of portraying people's individual lives and how they all intersect, but also some of the things that we talk about on the show, like the stories we tell ourselves about things and how much perceptions create our reality, right? And what we, basically, you know, what I say on here, how we create the life that we think about. And so I felt like it was really well written, and it just illustrated a lot of that stuff. And I was really captivated by that. So if you're looking for a new show to watch, I highly recommend that show. It's really good. They're coming out with season 2, I think, in June of 2019. So it'll be here soon. And okay, let's see what else. Oh, today I'm going to see Eric Church here in Nashville. He's playing at Nissan Stadium. I'm going to be in the pit, and I'm going to the pre-party. It's a private party. They're doing a tailgate party this year. I've done a lot of those over the years, and this one's going to be outside, and it's like 100 here in Nashville today. So today is going to be probably a pretty crazy day, but I'm pretty amped up about that, and I can't wait to go. So, and also last week I mentioned I was going to be adding coaching to my website. I'm still doing that. I haven't gotten that page quite set up yet. I'm still working through that. But if you are interested in that or have any questions, I would be happy to talk to you about it. Just email me, sloanfremont@gmail.com. All right, so let's move on to this week's topic of signs. And what I'm talking about this week when I talk about signs is my definition of that. It's the way that the universe communicates with us through what we see all around us. And as always, as I talk through any of this stuff, take what resonates with you and just leave the rest, right? So I want to tell you a story to illustrate this, and then we'll get into this a little more. So the other day I was driving to yoga it's actually on the opposite end of town in Nashville than where I live. And the class started at 6:00, and that probably like 4 to 6-ish range in traffic in Nashville isn't exactly ideal. And I was going from one end of town to the other, so that made it even a little more dicey because I never know how early I need to leave. And right there you can tell with me telling that story that I have a belief or a perception that traffic is always going to suck at that time. So I was operating under that impression, right? And so I was pissed off. I was driving there because I was going to be late, and I don't like to be late because I'm the person that likes to get to class, get my mat in my spot, like make sure I have some space around me, right? Because when people are like right up next to me, I'm like, oh my God, like get away from me, right? Like I need my personal space. So I like to get there early. It wasn't looking like that was going to happen that day because of traffic. And so I'm driving along, and I'm irritated, I'm pissed. And I see this car, you know, on the other side passing me. I mean, not passing me as like behind me, but we were, she was going the opposite way as I was. And she had this sign on her dashboard that said, expect miracles. Expect miracles. And this wasn't a sign that like she went out and bought and like placed on the dashboard and like threw it up there. I mean, this was like a homemade sign. I mean, it was like she took a piece of white paper and a Sharpie marker and like wrote it out and then taped it over a piece of cardboard so it would like fit in the front of her dash of her car. And so the purpose of this was so that people coming, like people, on the opposite side of her, whoever's looking at her head on in her vehicle could see the sign. And again, it wasn't like some fancy go out and buy it. It was a handmade sign, which that intrigued me because I'm like, wow, someone actually took the time to like make that sign to show it to other people so that they could see it. And as soon as I saw that, it's like as soon as I saw that, I started laughing. Like it instantly released the tension that I had going on because I could tell it was a sign from the universe, right? It was a sign for me to just chill the fuck out for a minute and expect miracles. And it totally helped me change my perspective and pull me back to like, okay, you know what? This isn't the end of the world, right? This isn't that big of a deal. I mean, I'm on my way to yoga. If I don't get there and I don't get the perfect spot, or if somebody comes a little close to me, all right, it's not the end of the world. I'm probably not even going to remember it the next day. But I was operating as if it was, right? I was operating as this, like, I gotta get there. I'm like, God, like, you know, like I was coming from that, those feelings and that mood. And when I saw that sign, like I said, expect miracles. I was like, yes, like, what, this isn't that big of a deal, right? I can expect a miracle anywhere I go. And, I just thought that was really cool. And that got me thinking about it. Like, you know, like how many people really noticed that? And if they did, what did they think of it? If anything, like, what did they even think? And I wondered, did it actually allow anybody else to change their day like it did mine? I mean, like I said, I looked at it and I laughed and I relaxed and I was like, yeah, I let go of the tension I was holding from being annoyed. And I said to myself, yeah, like expect miracles. So that's what I want to talk about today. Like those signs that are all around us, those things that we see that maybe we don't notice, or maybe they do catch our attention. And to me, those are signs from the universe. And so I really wanted to dig into that this week of where we might see those signs, how they come about, and what can we do with them to, to improve our lives. So back when I was changing my life, it's 2.5 years ago now, I would see signs all over. And the signs that I saw back then were numbers and dragonflies. Like those were the two things that I would see everywhere. I mean, dragonflies were literally everywhere, like all around me all the time. And the story of where I first saw a dragonfly and noticed the sign it's another cool one. I was driving to work at my old job back then, and I was in a construction zone. And I still remember exactly where I was. Like I still remember on the road, remember exactly where I was. And I was only driving about like 35 or 40 because I was going through this construction zone. And something fluttered next to my driver's side window, and it was like flying along with me as I was driving. And it scared me at first. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? And at first I thought it was a hummingbird. But then I noticed it was a dragonfly, and it was literally like it was looking in my window, like looking at me. Like its body was facing, so its eyes were looking in the window at me, but I was driving, obviously forward, and it was keeping up. Like it was flying sideways as I was going like 35 or 40, looking at me as I was driving through this construction zone. And I was like, oh my God. Like at first, like I said, I was startled. I thought it was a hummingbird, and then I looked and I saw it was a dragonfly flying sideways, looking at me while I was going 35 or 40. And I was like, that is so cool. Like, I don't know. And then from there on out, I saw them everywhere. Like, I saw them everywhere. And that became the meaning of that sign for me became, that's when I was feeling good, right? Like I was like, that meant things were good, and I was vibing high, and I was feeling good. And I remember when I went and I got my car, and these dragonflies were flying all around the parking lot, and I was looking around like, is anybody else not seeing this? I mean, they were everywhere. They were like zooming around and like flying in and out of me and like getting close to me and then flying away. And the interesting part of that is dragonflies are not like, usually they're around water, right? And I'm in the middle of like the Midwest, right? There was no water. I guess there was a river, but it wasn't that close by. And they were just everywhere. And I remember laughing because it was like also like they made it fun. Like they were just zooming in and out and like all around everywhere. And I saw them another time when I was in Florida. I think it was last summer. I was just laying there, and, I think it was at the pool, and they were like hundreds of them around me, like up above, like, above my head, like, out of the peripheral of most other people too, but they were just flying around up there like crazy. And I remember at that time thinking, my God, does anybody see these? Like they are just everywhere. And so that sign to me was that I was feeling good. That was the meaning I had with it. And we'll talk about meanings here in a little bit more, but those are just two illustrations for me in my life, like where signs were, it pointed at, it brought me out of my own like tunnel vision space, right? It opened me up. I saw something bigger. I saw something around me and I paid attention to it. And so I don't see dragonflies as much these days. It kind of makes me sad because I loved it when I did. I mean, it made me feel good. And I was like, oh yes, this is like, I know where I'm at. Like, I know I'm feeling good. But anytime I do, it always makes me smile because it reminds me of that time and how present they were in my life and how good it always felt. And so I was thinking about other places that I see signs in my life. And some of these may be the same for you and you may notice it in other areas, but here are some things that I notice in my life. So I often see signs on shirts that people are wearing, and especially at the airport. Like, I saw some when I was there. I forgot to write this down, so I need to look on my phone really quick. But when I was flying to Texas, last week I saw some, okay, here, one was, it is well with my soul. That was one that I saw, a shirt that I saw. And then as I was going, I posted this actually on Instagram. I was eating at Torchy's Tacos, which I love Torchy's. Anytime I'm in Texas, like, I always go get Mexican food. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I was, at Torchy's and I was eating there before I was going to the airport. And so I walked past the bathroom as I got my food and I was going to sit down. And this sign, they had this huge thing painted like in between the men's and women's bathroom on the wall. It was this big sign that said, "You look damn good." And that caught me for a minute and I was like, yeah, I like that, right? That made me feel good. Like, so I see signs a lot when I'm traveling, like airport, the shirts that people wearing, or just billboards and different things like that. Even around town, right? I see those a lot. I often get messages or signs, I feel like, in songs. Like, because I listen to a lot of new songs that I don't always know the words, like on my Spotify playlist, I listen to what's called the Release Radar. So it's new songs that come out that I generally probably haven't heard before. And so a lot of times I'll get signs in songs, like something will catch me or it'll catch my attention or it'll, like, I'm just kind of driving and in a zone, it'll pull me out and I'll be like, oh, wow, what was that? And then, I'll get a message in that. And this was back again when I was changing my life. I'm not kidding you. There was a time I was driving and my Sirius XM got infiltrated. I'm not kidding. Like, that's how I describe it. It got infiltrated and to send me song lyrics. Like, the song was playing, another song completely came on, which was not what was being displayed on the Sirius, on the dial that tells you the song, and the channel and all that. A completely different song came on and played for like 20 seconds and then it went away. And after it, I was like, what the fuck just happened? And then, of course, no one's in the car with me, but then I couldn't remember what the lyrics were. Like, I knew the song, but it happened so fast and I was just kind of like zoned out and I couldn't remember what the lyrics are. The lyrics were for the infiltrated song. So that's still to this day, I'm like, I don't even know how that happened, but I just thought it was fun. And, sometimes I think also with signs, like, we may see them and we don't always have to, sit there and, dissect it, right? And try to figure out the meaning. Sometimes it's like the message is for our subconscious and our subconscious gets it, where our logical thinking mind maybe didn't need the message as much. So other areas I see signs, billboards, buses, like I said, just sometimes random emails, like even like a marketing email or like a spam, stupid email, right? Sometimes there's messages in that, different signs in that. Instagram posts. We've talked about this, a couple of episodes ago. I was talking about like these dead or blank, like cardboard posts. But every once in a while there's a post that it's the same, like with the songs. It'll stop me in my tracks and I'll be like, like the emoji, like, okay, I like that, right? That has something for me. One time I was in Florida and I found this magnet that was buried in the sand in the beach. I was just like combing my fingers through the sand and I pulled up this magnet and it said, "You can never have too much happy." And at that time I really needed that message. Like, I was still with my ex and I was not happy, and I was actually there with him, and it was a big thing. And so that message, I needed that message. And actually I still have that magnet. It's still on my fridge today. You can overhear people talking, like when they're just passing you, like if you're somewhere crowded or even not crowded, right? People, you can just catch like a few words of a sentence. And I believe there's a sign in that. Also internal signs, like a nudge to do this or that may seem insignificant, but it ends up taking you on a path that you maybe never would have dreamed of, right? Like, Like I often have this happen when I feel like on the one hand, I don't want to go somewhere, but then I sit there and I'm like, no, I don't want to stay here either. And I end up going wherever it is that I initially didn't want to go, and have this chain of events happen that I never could have planned if I tried, right? I've met a lot of people that way over the years, like just showing up and because I felt compelled to, with nothing else really on the agenda. And I'm a planner, so for me to show up and not have some loose guideline is, it's a little out of my element. So, but that's another sign. Like the universe is leading me somewhere that I need to go to meet the person that I need to meet, for whatever that looks like for me after that. Just random places, right? Like, I don't know, everywhere. Like your neighbor could have a car that has a bumper sticker on it, or bumper stickers like when you're driving in traffic, or somebody mentions something to you, like a coworker, somebody in passing, like, or somebody put something on your desk, right, at work, or all these different places. Repeating numbers, like I talked about, that was big for me because numbers, I'm a numbers person anyway, so numbers, that got my attention when I was changing my life before. And so I see a lot of messages and repeating numbers, and we'll talk about that in a minute, about the definitions of those. But even animals, right? And like I mentioned with the dragonfly, and there's messages in what they're bringing us as well, I believe. And then lastly, dreams. I mean, dreams is a big area. Some people don't dream, or they don't remember their dreams, but dreams are another way that I think signs come from the universe. I had a dream once where somebody I was dating at the time, in the dream, he was telling me, remember this number, make sure to remember this number. And like I said, numbers are my thing. So that's probably why that stood out to me. And in the dream, the number that was given to me was the number, if I'm trying to remember, it was the number for his flight that he was flying out for the next day. Like there was no way I would know that. Like that was crazy. That was actually fun and crazy too. Cause I like those things. But so let's talk about the meaning of signs. So here's the thing, and why I think this is fun, and why I keep saying, it's fun. I liked it. It was good to me. Maybe for some of you, this isn't fun. Maybe for some of you, this is creepy or weird or annoying or I don't know, anything. But for me, it's fun. So if this is fun for you, this is for you. This show is for you. If it's not fun for you, like I always say, take what works for you and leave the rest. But to me, the fun, why it's so fun is because I get to interpret it. I get to interpret what the meaning is for me. Like there's no, in my opinion, no universal definition that's going to sum things up for every single person. And so each of us get to see what we get to decide what that meaning is for us. And I've also noticed that sometimes meanings change over time, right? Like we're growing and we're always evolving, and that's okay, right? To have things change over time, that's a good thing. But one way that I helped myself, like one way that I learned to determine the meanings is, well, there's a couple ways I did this. So like, what am I thinking about when I see the sign? Like when I see whatever it is, like the day I saw the expect miracles thing, like what was I thinking? I was thinking, I'm pissed off. This isn't going to work out. Like I'm going to have a shitty spot when I get to class, and this message pops up, expect miracles. I'm like, yeah, what's the other side of that? Right? Like what if I show up and everything's fine? What if the class isn't very full and so what if traffic clears up suddenly and I get there early, all that kind of stuff. So what are you thinking about at the time you see the sign, and how does it feel for you? Right? Like, does it uplift you? Does it feel good? Like it felt good for me to see expect miracles. Like that felt good to me. And over time, like especially with the dragonflies, like when I kept seeing them, like I felt good when I saw them. So that's another way to interpret a sign. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel good when you see it, or do you feel bad? Because sometimes you can continually see things that are don't make you feel good. And that's a sign too, right? That's a sign maybe you're not going in the direction you want to go. So pay attention to that, because I think your feelings are often the first place to start. Like if you're trying to determine what a sign means, like how do I feel about it? And what does that look like for me? And then you'll start to notice patterns over time, and you'll be able to figure out what works best for you. Like what's the best meaning for you? So back on my example of numbers and dragonflies, and like I talked about with definitions, to early on to determine their meanings, when I noticed these repeating signs, especially like the numbers, let's say, I looked them up online to see what it means. So like if you're seeing repeating numbers, just search angel numbers, angel number meanings. And there's all these different sites that'll give you a lot of different, meanings for numbers and what they mean when they show up in your life. And then the dragonfly, I just looked up animal totem meanings, and there's various definitions of dragonflies, but really my interpretation was it was good luck. Like it was high vibing. It made me feel good. It was, I'm in a good place when I see these. And so those are a couple options you can do too. Look up online, see what others are saying the meanings are. But I think the bottom line is taking what it feels for you and what feels good for you, not necessarily taking it because a definition says it, right? And so in interpreting dreams, that's a little bit more involved. Like I actually took some classes on this, and one of the things that I learned, the big things in that class that they taught us, was that no one can determine a dream for you. It's the dreamer's ultimately the dreamer's interpretation. But a big part of figuring out isn't the word necessarily, but understanding a dream is, how does it make you feel? Like, how did it make you feel? Because for example, a lot of times people think if they have a dream about death or dying, that they're going to die, or somebody that they love is going to die. But a lot of times what that indicates is that a part of you is dying off that no longer serves you. I'm not saying all the time, right? This is not a blanket statement, but dreams are often not as literal as we believe them to be. So like on the death part, like a piece of you is dying off that you no longer need. Like maybe it's a bad habit, or it's a bad thinking pattern, or it's something that's no longer serving you. And so the dream brings you these things. It brings them in ways that you can recognize to help you process whatever you have going on. But ultimately, the bottom line with a dream is to pay attention to how you feel. How did it make you feel? All right, so we've talked about signs and their meanings and where you might notice signs. And so I wanted to also talk about, so what do we do with this? Like, what do we do with these signs? Like when the universe is speaking to us, and especially if it's in these repeating words or phrases or numbers. I believe that in my experience is that there's something to pay attention there, like a larger message. And you know, if you can ignore it, but it's going to keep intensifying in your life. So it's not a bad idea to pay attention to it and start to notice the things that you see repeatedly, right? Like, what are those things that you're seeing? And like I said, the interpretations are going to be different for everyone, and how you apply them in your life isn't going to be the same as I do, right? So, I think just the interpretation and noticing the patterns, that you're going to start to see that these signs are telling a bigger story. And I think that's what we're really after with this, right? Like, what's the story here? What's going on? What can I not see because I'm so far into this that I'm getting signs all around that are giving me indications of what's happening. And like I said, you'll notice some things come around when you're feeling really high, and high, I don't mean literally high on drugs. I mean high, like you're feeling good, right? You feel excited and loving and like really good about life. And certain things only come around when you're low. Like, if you feel like shit, you're going to see things that match to that feeling, right? So I think ultimately that they are just, signs are a way, and I love this. I absolutely love this, that signs are a way that the universe, it communicates with us, and it gives us the chance to write our thoughts if we're wandering down a path that we know we don't really want to go, right? Like the day I saw the expect a miracle sign. I mean, it literally would make me laugh out loud, like I said, but it gave me an opportunity to redirect my thoughts and my feelings and realize, you know what? This really isn't as big of a deal as I'm trying to make it out to be. So I want to wrap up today's show with just a few paragraphs from a book I just finished reading called The Power by Rhonda Byrne. And you may remember her. She wrote the book The Secret and did the movie and everything. But this newer book is called The Power, and she talks about signs in this book. And she talks about it in a lot more detail, but I'm just going to give you a few parts that I really like that I think apply and go with today's show. So here's what she has to say. Life is responding to you. Life is communicating with you. There are not accidents or coincidences. Every single thing has a frequency, and when anything comes into your life, it means it's on the same frequency as you. So everything you see, every sign, every color, person, object, everything you hear, every circumstance and event is on your frequency. You're being given messages and feedback constantly, and you have been receiving these messages all your life. So when you hear something, even if they're words from a conversation of two strangers who are standing next to you, if you hear the words have meaning in your life. If I'm traveling and I notice a sign and I read the words, those words have meanings for me. They're a message for me and they're relevant for me. And they're relevant to me because I'm on the same frequency as they are. If I were on a different frequency, I would notice the sign, but I wouldn't notice the sign and I wouldn't be in earshot of the conversation. So what she's saying is if, like I said, if you're on the higher vibe, feelings, you're going to match with higher vibe. The signs are going to be higher vibe. So, and if you're on lower vibe feelings, you're going to match with lower vibe signs around you. And so every single thing that surrounds me in my day is speaking to me, giving me constant feedback and messages. If I notice that the people around me aren't happy or smiling as much as they were, I know my frequency has dropped, and immediately I think of things I love one after the other until I feel happier. So what she's saying is that it's having the self-awareness to notice if you're not seeing signs that are where you want to be, then that's probably an indication that you've dropped down into a different, vibration, frequency, whatever you want to call it. And that gives you the opportunity to right yourself, to redirect, like I did with the expect miracles sign. So she goes into a lot more detail in the book, but I just really loved how she put it, and it made a lot of sense to me. And so I hope it does for you too. And I'll link to the book in the show notes so you can check that out. All right. So I'm going to close this out here today. So as you move forward this week, start to notice the signs that show up in your life. I think it's fun to keep a list of these synchronicities that show up and just see what continues and how they evolve. So see what shows up for you, what words, what signs, numbers, or animals, or even the conversations that you overhear. And just pay attention to that this week and see what you find. All right, to wrap up the show today, so we talked about signs and how the signs are all around us. And I told you the story of how I saw the homemade sign of expect miracles on that lady's car when I was driving to yoga, and just how I was so pissed off before I saw that, and how that sign totally changed my perspective. And as I've said a lot, I personally believe that signs are all around us, and that it's one way that the universe speaks to us, through these signs on billboards or t-shirts or animals or numbers or whatever it is. And I love how Rhonda Byrne talks about it in her book, The Power, because she says all of these signs are relevant to us because we're on the same frequency as the signs. And if we weren't on that frequency, we wouldn't even notice the sign. And to me, signs are little notes from the universe, and they may come in different packages, but the fun thing is you get to interpret what they mean for you and how to use them in your life. And they can be great indicators of how to show us where we are today and give us the opportunity to redirect our thoughts that help us to feel better. And I think that's one of the keys to creating your life, right? We talk about this, like creating the life that you speak. Like it starts with your thoughts and your feelings, and these signs are an indication. They're a little nudge from the universe that asks you, hey, is that the path you want to be going on? Because here's an opportunity to redirect. So that's what I would say this week, and I'll leave you with is looking at signs as the opportunities to redirect and get us on the path we want to create the life that we ultimately want. All right, let's talk about songs. So the intro song I chose was Dragonfly by Shaman's Harvest. Obviously, I've talked about dragonflies on this whole show, so I had to play this song, Shaman's Harvest, Dragonfly. And then to close out, so I just went Thursday night, I went to this show. It was Hyro, the Hero, Nonpoint, and POD. And for any of you 90s people like me, POD was back in our day. And actually, when he put on the little board behind him, when he was their little display behind him when they were playing, it said POD established 1992, and I was like, damn, man, it doesn't seem like that long ago. But POD, they played it was a pretty heavy rock show, which I love, and I went with one of my friends and we had a great time. There's even a mosh pit. Like, this dude was in the mosh pit and we were on the edge of it, and I'm like, oh my god, I have not seen a mosh pit in years. Like years. So that was really fun. I don't know why, it just was. So the outro song is POD, Youth of a Nation. You probably know this song from back in the day, so I want to close out with that. So all right, so that's it for this week's topic of signs, and I would really love to know your thoughts. Like, what do you feel about this? Like, how does it work for you? Like, what signs do you see, or what signs do you see? So please feel free to email me, sloanfremont@gmail.com, or visit my website, sloanfremont.com. And like I said, I'll be adding that coaching page if you have any desire to work with me, one-on-one, happy to do that. So I'll be posting more information about that. You can also find me on Instagram at Sloan Fremont. And if you like the podcast, please share it with somebody who might benefit. And also remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in iTunes so more people can find me. All right, that's it for this week. Abracadabra. Now go forth and create what you speak.